Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at Space Cowboy Books Online. I am your host, Jean-Paul Garnier, and this evening we are here to celebrate L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future, Volume 40, a milestone, 40 years of the contest. And tonight we are joined by coordinating judge Jody Lynn Nye, illustrator Steve Bentley and Jennifer Mellen, and author Jean-Eric Schleicher. We're going to start off the program with a little excerpt from Jean-Eric's story, Squiddy.
All
Jean-Eric
right. Well,
Schleicher writes stories that leave behind a fantastical aftertaste long after reading. While story rules the roost, Jean-Eric's favorite authors tell their tales with panache and pleasing prose. Toni Morrison, Cormac McCarthy, Stephen King, and Ray Bradbury top his literary cake. When not reading or writing, Jean-Eric enjoys wandering wonderstruck, whether on two legs or knobby wheels, the mountains near his home in Missoula, Montana. His greatest loves are his son, Ryder, and wife, Ashley, to whom Squiddy is dedicated. Squiddy, his first professional sale, is a spawn of the post-apocalyptic imaginings of an extraterrestrial squid invasion and explores the self-destructive habits we seek to escape or soften despair. He is currently expanding the tale into a novel. Jean-Eric's short fiction has also appeared in Creepy Podcast. I'm going to hand it over to him to share an excerpt from the story, Squiddy.
thank you, John Paul, and many thanks to Space Cowboy Books for hosting us and giving us this platform to meet your readers. So, I'm gonna jump right into my story, Squiddy. Just right before I do, though, I want to show a picture that Tyler Vale, the illustrator for the story, wrote. This is the main character, and the reason why I'm showing this is the story's written in first person. Her name Jocelyn comes up, but just so it's not any whiplash, I'm going to do my regular voice. I'm not going to try to change it for her. So, and then I'm going to read the first scene from Squiddy. Two raps wrap my door. Hold on. I struggle off my mattress in my one-room apartment. My current squat, a good squat, and past my magenta-colored squid that soaks in a gray tub of water. I open the door to a woman with long black hair, her eyes sunken into cavernous sockets. Barefooted and wearing a red tank top, she's got no pants on, only loose white panties held up by sharp hip bones. Like mine, like all Squiddies, her nostrils are black like she's picked her nose with an exploded pen. She holds a dripping plastic bag, the kind from when grocery stores existed. I know what's inside. You Jocelyn? Her voice is slight and raspy, a mile away. You got a job for me? I nod at her bag. Are you just here to squid? Both. Across the hall, this week's neighbors are at it again. Screams and curses, a baby crying. Poor little girl. There's near no chance for the youngest since the squids came. How they came, no one knows for sure. One day, unannounced, the squishy membrane bodies of changing colors, pinks and blues and greens, started plopping up everywhere. And since that day, they've kept plopping up everywhere. On the roads, on roofs, in yards, front and back, privacy fences be damned. No spaceships, no missiles or bombs, no take me to your leader nonsense. As invasions go, it was yawn inducing. That was until someone stuck a tentacle up his or her nose. Give that squiddy a Nobel. A Darwin Award might be better. I turn for the woman to follow. What's the job? I'm told you find people. She closes the door and kerplunks her squid in the tub of water with mine. You bring them back too? If they want bringing back. I sit cross-legged on the mattress and ruffle my back tote bag for my tin case of rolled cigarettes and Zippo lighter. Who needs finding? Daughter. She sits on the floor against the wall, hugging knees to chest. Got a picture? I toss her my cigarettes and lighter. She looks like me. Damn it, she doesn't have a picture. How much younger? She lights her cigarette, inhales a drag, and blows a smoky stream out the right side of her mouth. I was 17 when I had her. How old are you now? 34 or 5. She looks much older. We all look much older. I stand, my legs prickle. That sensation's happening more often. I walk toward my red milk crate of supplies in the corner of the room and toss inside. Rope, carabiner, duct tape, an assortment of knives, long blades, serrated blades, switchblades, and the like. There it is, my Polaroid camera. I snap a picture of the frowning woman. The camera whines as it spits the white Polaroid out. I fan it until her image appears. What's your daughter's name? Anne Marie. And your name? I stuffed the picture in the tote. Call me Ma Bev. What does Anne Marie call you? Everybody calls me Ma Bev. One of our squids flops to water with a tentacle. They need moisture to survive. Morning dew's enough. After a long rain, there's more of them than earthworms. So much you got to play hopscotch, not the squash one. And if you do, that's a nasty day. Their juicy insides are acidic. Ma Bev, when and where did you last see Anne Marie? Georgia. It was Georgia. Not sure when. I don't keep track of time good. Was it before or after the squids? Before. Before in Georgia? Why are you looking here? She likes the ocean. Last recall, there's an ocean near Georgia. She likes the Pacific. Pacific's a big sink. She had a postcard from the Olympic Peninsula tacked near her bed. She gestures like Vanna White used to do. So here I am. I got doubts the postcard brought Anne Marie here. We're in temperate rainforest after all. Constant rain means constant squids means a constant flow of squiddies. So Ma Bev's not telling me the whole truth. What of it? Everybody's got secrets. I got to eat, so I asked for half my fee up front, the rest if I find Anne Marie. Ma Bev says she has a bag of ground cornmeal back where she squats between two large red cedars in Boyd's camp. I tell Ma Bev I'll get started once I got the cornmeal. Then I tell her I'm ready to squid. I'm jonesing. She nods her agreement. Two-handed, I scoop up my dripping squid, now yellow, face the wall and kneel, my cheek muscles grinning. I close my eyes and inhale its smell, that sour sweetness rising. I faintly register Ma Bev's sighs behind me as I slip a thin tentacle up my pierced nostril. Feel it slip and slide up through my nasal cavity, past that little hole that leads down the digestive tract. More tentacles, like oily spaghetti, worm into my mouth, down my throat. The squid does this on its own. Some evolutionary derived sense humans don't got. Pheromones or some crap. I taste its metallic secretion, feel it hook into my esophagus with a tight pinch. So I'm gagging now, eyes watering now, got that metallic taste now, when the squid wraps its other moist tentacle around my neck to latch on. The parasite squeezes. It pulses, pulse, pulse, and it rips off my supple flesh from within, and it eats. The anticipation, though, even the anticipation makes my entire body tingle, from head to breast to toes, limp almost. There's no other high like squid. Sex? Nah. Heroin? Nope. So other squiddies have told me. Heaven? Heaven might compare. I'll never know. And it's coming. The euphoric, orgasmic hit is coming in 3 Mississippi flat. Count it. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. Bliss.
Thank you so
So
much.
you're welcome. That's the first scene in Squiddy.
Thank you, John Eric. I'd like to move on to Jody for a moment here. Jody has had an amazing career in the literary arts and is the coordinating judge of the contest, of course. Jody, I wonder if you could tell us how you first became involved with Writers of the Future and ultimately how you became the coordinating judge.
Well, I was approached by John Goodwin and Emily Goodwin, who asked me to join the judging staff. And I didn't realize at the time how many of my friends were already judges. So when I walked into the group for the first time, I think it was 2016, and saw one friend after another sitting in the waiting room in the library of author services, it was, well, like a reunion. So I was happy to join up, happy to see these people. They're some really prominent names and good friends of mine from way back. So it's been a pleasure. I was asked to take over as coordinating judge following the very sudden passing of David Farland. I knew him as David Wolverton way back when, and it was quite a shock to lose him so suddenly. But they called me and said, would I be willing to step in? And well, I thought I would. One of the things I do is to try to give it back as I have been given to younger writers. So quite a lot of people have given me their kindness, and I'm trying to pass that along. And this is one of the ways I can, is by recognizing excellent young writers like John Eric.
David was a horrible loss to the science fiction and fantasy community, but I'm so glad the torch was handed into good hands. I wonder if you could speak for a moment on what are some of the elements of John Eric's story, Squiddy, that attracted you towards selecting this story, and what are if there's a possible answer for this, what is the anatomy of a winning story for writers of the future?
Well, to get my attention, it has to have a spark. It has to have something that an ordinary story doesn't. It has to connect with me right away. I want to know about the characters. I like to say I want the stories to hit the ground running. So I want to see a world building. I want to see what the problem is, and I want to meet the characters and understand that they're three-dimensional, functional beings. Whether or not they're functional in the real world, I want them to be real people that you can picture living. And if it doesn't have something unique about it, if it doesn't strike me in actually more than one way, I probably will just say, yeah, that's a good story, that's okay, or good, but not finalist quality. But there was something about Squiddy. It was funny on top of the sort of horror elements of it, but the thought of getting high on something that was an alien squid that sticks a tentacle up your nose. At the same time, I was cringing a little bit, but it also made me laugh. So I thought that the story was well constructed. There were stakes. A good story always has consequences. It has a problem that must be solved. It doesn't have to be filled with action, but it has to have a purpose. And Squiddy fulfilled that.
Absolutely. At this point, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Malone. Jennifer Malone was born March 2nd, 1988 in Salt Lake City and raised in Magna, Utah. She has been drawing from a very young age and has explored every art medium she could find, including traditional, digital, and sculpture. She has also loved all things fantasy, creating strange creatures and dragons in her artwork. She earned her associate degree in illustration while raising 3 children with her husband, Nathan Malone. After working for some years in graphic design, she and her husband started Sea Dragon Cove, producing and selling fantasy products at various Renaissance festivals, conventions, and Evermore Park. The business is now joined with We Geek Together Entertainment. At Life the Universe and Everything Symposium in Provo, Utah, Jennifer attended an Illustrators of the Future panel where she met contest judge Brian C. Hales. After several years of meeting artists at various venues, she was inspired to submit work to Illustrators of the Future. Jennifer, the realism in your piece is really quite striking. And I wonder, how do you go about blending elements of realism with elements of the speculative?
So actually the genre that I usually do is like general fantasy. And I've done one space themed painting before. So this one would have been the second one. So it's actually not a genre I usually do, but I can pretty much take any idea and I can go with it and I can apply different things to it. Um, Specifically on that one, I learned a lot of new tools just to make that specific image successful. And that one was a digital piece where I actually traditionally painted background that ultimately ended up being a phased out and blurry image in the actual painting, but then I had to manipulate and copy that background as well as other parts of the image over and over and over and flip them sideways and upside down so that they would refract in every teardrop exactly the way that they should. And I actually had to do that a few different times to figure out how to do it properly. So it was very tricky. Yeah.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to introduce Steve Bentley. Steve Bentley was born in 1964 in the city of Leeds in the north of England. He started drawing at an early age, at first on walls with crayons, then on any scrap of paper he could lay his hands on or that his father could provide. His love of art continued into school. If you would have asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, he would have said he wanted to draw and paint movie posters and book covers. Life, however, took him in other directions, but he continued to draw and paint every day, developing his work until the opportunity came along for him to attend art school. There, he gained a degree with honors in animation, art, and design. His passion always remained in illustration, and it is there he has continued to concentrate. He works almost exclusively in traditional media, as he enjoys the process, and having something tangible to hold is important to him. However, he has been known to dabble in the digital realm. He currently lives in Portland, Oregon, where he hopes to continue to grow his freelance career. So, Steve, your illustration for the book has a great sense of depth in it, in a way reminiscent of the late Romantic era painters. I wonder, do you gravitate towards this era of painting, and how do you go about creating such a sense of space in your work? You're still muted, Steve.
All right. Is that better? So yeah, it's the first time in a long time I'd actually done any form of landscape. If you ask me what my influences are, I'd probably tell you it's a bunch of comic book guys. So at school I did get an education in the classicists and things like that, but I never really gravitated towards it. But being more of a sort of pop artist, and I just the work I've been doing recently is all basically comic book stuff. So it was an unusual project for me to be given. I thought they try and match us up to something that's going to fit our talents. So when I got a landscape, which is basically what the story called for, I was more than a little surprised, I'll be honest. But it also challenged me quite a lot more than I'm used to. I really actually enjoyed doing the whole thing. Trying to get that sense of space was like one of the biggest things about the story that I took away. So to do a landscape 1 and to do a sunset 2, and then to try and get that feeling of space was a big challenge. But I was really quite pleased with the results in the end, even though it was a task at some points. Parts of it were incredibly difficult to do. And working traditionally, I set a sort of a rod for my own back in a way with that. If I'd have done it digitally, I probably could have got away with a few more things, but it's just not how I work. I think I just like to make it difficult for myself, I suppose.
And what are a few of the comic book artists you were referring to that influenced you?
Well, there's Frank Frazetta for a start, and then there's Bernie Wrightson. I've loved his stuff. Then a bunch of English guys, a guy called Brian Bolland, from when I was a kid, still around. He moved over to the US and did a bunch of quite famous comic books over the years. More recently, I appreciate Alex Ross, people like that. But like I said, most of my heroes revolve around comic book these days, I suppose.
Thank you, Steve.
Mhm.
Here's a question for all of the winners here, and we'll start with Jennifer for the answer on this one. So, how many times did you enter the contest before winning? How long has Illustrators of the Future been on your radar? And you talked about going to a panel that prompted you to finally submit. But how long has this process been for you?
I think I might have actually heard of the contest first back when I was in college, and I had graduated in 2016, so that was a long time ago. But I didn't think to, oh, maybe I should submit. And then it was maybe a couple of years ago when I attended that panel at LTUE, and even then I still didn't submit my work. It wasn't until after I had been going to some networking events at conventions where I was trying to show off my business, and then I was like, but I also did these illustrations, and people would be like, why aren't you doing So why isn't this your focus? And I was like, okay, fine. Maybe I should actually try to do something more with that. And the work that I ended up submitting were the assignments I did back in college. And I could have submitted those many, many years ago. But um, it, it was such a great experience. And when I did finally decide to submit, I got an honorable mention. And then Jody said I should submit again. And I did. And then I won.
Only twice. That's impressive.
Yeah.
John Eric, how many times have you submitted to the contest prior to winning?
So tad longer than or more often than Jennifer. So it was my 14th submission, which finally, when I won third place in quarter one of volume 40. I found out about the contest from David Farland. He was the guest of honor of my local con, and extolling one of the virtues of short story writing, but also just the contest, and was telling us all, if you wanna break in, this is the great way to do it. Not only because Writers of the Future helps to launch you, like here I'm talking to readers right now that wouldn't have opportunity to if I didn't win this contest, but there's also many resources that the Writers of the Future contest offers that you can really take advantage of. And so any writers here, I definitely really advocate checking out the website, because there's a Writers of the Future online workshop taught by Tim Powers, Orson Scott Card, Dave Farland as well before he passed. There's a forum where you can meet other people who are all aiming towards the same goal, and I found via that way many mentors too as I submitted. And in my 14th submission, I climbed the ranks. So I'm sure Jody could talk more about this, but what's great about Writers of the Future contest is when you send it, make an entry. With most short story markets, you generally get if you get rejected, it's just a form letter. You didn't make it. You don't know why. But with the contests, as your stories get better, you start placing within the contest, and you can kind of watch. And it's really important for a beginning writer, because the rite of passage is just rejection after rejection after rejection. It's really hard for the confidence to wonder, like, where are you? Are you close to it? And so you can kind of watch yourself as entries. And so my first three entries were rejections. That started getting honorable mentions. Then I started getting zero honorable mentions, and then was my 14th submission. And I submit every single quarter when I finally did win.
And how about you, Steve? What's your history with the contest?
Oh, well, I first came across it about 10 years ago, and I submitted twice back then. I think I submitted twice in the first year, and I got an honorable mention the first time, and I got to the finals the second time. So this time, and then 10 years go by, I did a bunch of other stuff, and I was actually going through files because I've been sort of, trying to downsize stuff, and I came across my my finalist certificate. This is what you used to get back then, and I'd totally forgotten about it. I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a go. And this time I won, so it's a bit of a surprise. I'd done 2 paintings already. I just was painting for fun for me, and I did a third one basically for the competition. And then I was quite shocked to get the call that I'd been placed in the finals, and that's great, final, amazing. And then I got a call a couple of days later saying that I'd actually won. Fortunately, I was hanging out with my friends in their house that afternoon, and we got pretty drunk, I have to be honest. It was a big celebration. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's 10 years and 3 entries, I guess.
Absolutely worth celebrating. I've noticed a common story. We've at Space Cowboy, we've done a lot of events for Writers of the Future, and there's a common story of perseverance, which is wonderful and inspiring. And writing and illustrating is a very difficult world to get into. One has to be impervious, almost build an armor out of all those rejection slips that we're so used to getting. Jody, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the growth of the writers and artists that you see through the submission process, lasting over years, and up until the workshop and the award itself, and also a little bit about how the reading process works with the first readers, other judges, and so forth.
When the stories come in, they are stripped of any contact information, because one of the most important things about it is the work stands on its own. It's judged completely anonymously. So I don't know who people are. I can usually make an educated guess what country they come from based on internal clues and things. If they refer to, say, Lamingtons, I'm pretty sure they're Australian, and so on. But other than that, I don't have any real information. So I'm looking at the story fresh. I'm reading it. I keep track of stories that I have seen before. So I had read Squiddy in a previous form, and he got a silver then, but the next time it came back, it was better. And that is something that not everyone does, by the way. If you do not get the award that you're hoping for, if you get an honorable mention, you'd like to move up, look at the story again, because it lacked something that interests me. I need the best you can possibly give it. And if the story keeps getting the same grade over and over again, I request that you send me something else. One story does not a career make. But when the stories come in, they are passed along to my Schleichers, who are a team of experienced writers, usually winners in the contest. And they go over them to see if they qualify to move up the ranks. Out of many, many, many stories, I receive hundreds of stories, and I go through those. My job is to divide them into the 4 ranks that we have, which are honorable mention, which are stories that are good. They're basic good stories. Silver honorable mentions that have a spark, have a light of something. Semi-finalist, which is sometimes you get 2 very, very close stories, and one of them is a little better than the other that will edge that one and maybe become a finalist. Or it's a story that is really, really good, but is not for our market. Because what you are doing is writing for our market, which is to say, young adult all the way up to adults with sophisticated tastes. And it can't have sex on screen. We don't take things with real life drugs. Please tone down the profanity and so on. There are rules. Read them on the website. A story may be excellent in many ways, but not for us, and that gets a semifinalist. But 8 stories a quarter are given the nod to go on to a party, a team of other judges in our group to read and decide who are their first, second, and third favorites. And Jody Labaki, who is the person who calls up everyone and tells them that they are a finalist or they are a winner, she collates the votes, and then she makes those phone calls. And I know that some people have screamed with delight, some people react very quietly, but it's a thrill to hear who the winners are. And I don't know until that moment. I may not even get their names. I'll know which stories they wrote. And that's a thrill for me, because I have chosen them. I want all 8 of them to win, but they can't. So we're giving you the best of the best of the best. So when you submit, this should be the beginning of your journey. This should be where you plan to be. So write more stories. You should be writing something else when you send in the first story. The same goes for a professional career. And take advantage of everything that's offered to you from the contest. The writer's workshop, the online workshop is available, the forum, as John Eric said. But also, if you become a winner, you come into Hollywood for a week-long seminar with professional judges, of whom you have heard, like Larry Niven and Nettie Okafor and Kevin J. Anderson and me and Tim Powers, and names that you probably have on your bookshelf. So it's a tremendous opportunity. And you get an honest to goodness black tie red carpet gala. So the prizes are great. It's worth entering, and you can enter free. That's unlike so many other contests where it's $10, $25, $50, $100 to send in one short story. You can enter once a quarter. So take advantage of that. I love to see the enthusiasm of the people who have won the contest, who show up for it. One of the things I have noticed about all of them is that they are ambitious. They by the time I meet the first and second quarter winners, they have probably already written something else and are looking towards professional publication. By the time the David Hankins, the author of Death and the Taxman, came, he had already almost finished the novelization of the short story he won with and was planning on 2 more. And this is fairly typical of the group. They are ambitious, they're ready, and this is an opportunity to take a step forward above other brand new authors.
The contest certainly has many perks. And Joni's encouragement is one of them. Joni is so wonderful with writers, whether they're ready or not. You know, the ambition is there. The encouragement is wonderful. I wonder, Jody, if you could speak a little bit about the attitude, which seems very unique to science fiction and fantasy to me, the attitude of paying it forward, and how through successes we can help others, which is very much the spirit of the contest, and I know your involvement. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about what paying it forward means to you and to the contest.
When I was just starting out, I wrote my first short story with my husband, Bill Fawcett, and David Drake of now unfortunate memory. We lost him last year, and I'm always going to miss him. They were producing a shared world anthology called The Fleet. And David, with his wonderful track record and his many, many books, was encouraging me. He was pushing me forward. He was urging me to do my best. I met Anne McCaffrey. I started working with her. She gave me her time and her attention and her encouragement. She was always so encouraging to me and a lot of other young writers. As they had been given to when they moved into the field, they had the golden age writers behind them saying, "You're pretty good, kid. Keep going. No, that's not going to work, and here's why. And you need to go back and read more in the field so that you know what's out there." So any decent person would say, I was given to, I was encouraged, I was given care and information and critique, and I can pass that on. I can give that to the next generation of writers. And I think most of us have had proteges or students that we listen to, that we encourage, that we want to see succeed, because we want things to read too. So where are we going to get that? We can read our peers, we can read the great masters who came before us, but we also want to read the fresh new voices. And so many of them are here.
Absolutely. And anyone interested in fresh new voices in science fiction and fantasy has got to get this book because it's tremendous year after year. Here's a question for all of our winners related to what Jody was saying. And we'll start with Steve on this one. What was your biggest takeaway from the workshop in Hollywood? And were there any highlights for you as part of your trip to the gala?
I think for me, the whole thing was just an experience that I never even dreamt I would ever have. Just to be, you know, in the middle of Hollywood and to go to this big black tie event. It was like almost intimidating. It was just this huge event that was like looming on the horizon for a long time. Then finally got there, and it was just an amazing time. I met a lot of really great people, and I think in spite of a lot of the famous people I met, I think the biggest takeaway for me was to meet the other illustrators. I kind of think we formed a pretty tight band pretty quickly, and we all have remained in touch, you know, since then. And just to get encouragement from each other. It's, you know, every time the trouble with being an artist is, I think, in any field, is that you have these moments where you're feeling completely great, and then the next minute, like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. Why am I bothering? And then to just be able to turn around and like fire off a text to somebody, or get a message saying like, you got this, we're all okay, we're all feeling the same way. So for me, the biggest takeaway was like meeting my peers, people that I have come to admire as strong, driven artists. I mean, I saw Jenny a few weeks ago in Milwaukee. We went to the same sort of this course we were both on for a week, and that was great, just to run into people. So yeah, the biggest thing, all the other stuff was fantastic, and I learned a lot from a lot of people, but I think the biggest thing for me was the people that I spent all that time with. They allowed me to grow and actually I'd struggled a lot calling myself an artist because of like, I'm just this kind of hack. But then to meet these people who think, who I admired, then said, no, you're here for a reason. It just allows you to grow and move forward. And I've taken that away with me since then. So definitely the biggest thing was meeting the other people.
And what about for you, Jennifer?
I would definitely agree with a lot with what he was saying. um, I I loved being there at the whole experience. There's nothing I could say about it that would be like, why did I go? But doing the workshops were really great, and listening to all of the advice and learning all of these things. And it's like, wow, I could really make this happen. I could really do it as long as I listen and apply what everybody's saying. And then you meet all of these other like-minded people that have the same goals and wishes that you have, and it's really great to just be a part of that. And then I'd say if it wasn't for the competition, I don't know if I would have gotten back into illustrating. I think I wouldn't have had enough self-confidence and enough tools to convince me to keep moving forward with it. I It's like I needed that extra push to, convince myself.
I'm grateful that that happened. How about you, John Eric? Any big takeaways from the workshops and gala?
Sure. I mean, I'll absolutely second Steve and Jennifer with just the cohort that I was with. We are really tight friends. We support each other. We read each other's works and cheerlead each other on. I know I have lifelong friends, and we're all kind of at the same juncture at very different demographics and age and etc. But as far as like professionally speaking, we're right there trying to push forward. And I know there's going to be quite a few of us who are going to be big names, come 20, 30 years. No doubt about that. And I aim myself being included amongst those. But the biggest takeaway for me is just the self-belief, right? So I mean, I've been aiming for this goal of winning Riders of the Future. It's been my dream market since 2019. And submitting every single quarter. And this was my first sale too. I've sold several stories thereafter, but just that call from Jody saying that I won. I mean, I remember it. And then being at the workshop, Steve said he it was a situation that he didn't dream about. For me, it was the opposite, because I have been dreaming about that moment. I watched every single year the gala since I found out about dreaming myself on stage, trying to visualize myself there and aiming for it. And so then, it's kind of a pinch myself moment being there, be like, okay, cool, I achieved this goal, and now what? And then getting the affirmations from professional writers, the judges who I admire so much and mean a lot, saying, yeah, you can write a dang good story. Now keep at it. This is just one stop, right? Just keep doing it. But you have the ability. And so for me, internalizing that, writers, artists, creatives, especially when we're trying to sell our work and hearing no all the time, it's very demoralizing, right? And so you need to really really hold on to those successes, those moments. And that is kind of like for me anyway, Riley Gale and my sales, to keep at this, because it's a tough go. It takes work to achieve. And so, gotten a lot out of this victory of winning Riders of the Future.
Let's stay with you for a second, John Eric. I want to ask a few questions about Squiddy.
Yeah, sure.
Your story has an alien invasion theme, but it's not a violent occupation like we normally see in films and in a lot of stories. Can you tell us a little bit about flipping this trope on its head?
I can. So it wasn't a conscious effort to flip a trope. It was just I'm a pantser. The stories come out. I don't know where they come from, right? But what I wanted to do with Squiddy was to explore addiction, as well as this despair, and depression, and many people seek out addiction because of those ailments. and explore it through a speculative lens. And so, and these squids, they're invasive species, and they're addictive and parasitic. And so, but really, for I guess for the plot, the world building that happened, it really, for this story anyway, the voice came first, Jocelyn. And so I was just kind of writing Jocelyn, and that was her voice. I remember like there's a line in there, and I read earlier, there's like no take me to your leader nonsense. And so just because I wanted a neo-noir voice and kind of this punk rock voice from Jocelyn, that just, I was hitting that, just kind of this, I wanted to be about the addiction that really takes the world through the apocalypse, and not about the actual invasion itself. You know, it's this, humans are really, we are the ones who in the story who did it to ourselves, because everybody is addicted to these squids.
That leads perfectly into my next question about this. The idea of an alien as a narcotic is quite an interesting one. But to me, I also read this as a very deep commentary on codependence, and also codependence towards an oppressor. Could you speak to this, and where you got the idea of an alien being a drug?
I thought it was a cool idea. That, and I remember like I recently moved, and I found, just when I was cleaning up my things, the actual origin stories, when I jotted down the idea, and I just wrote down alien drugs. I think I wrote down like worms. So the aliens in my mind were these worms. And so that's just kind of what I wanted to write about. And so, I mean, we all have our vices, right? We all have our things that keep us from achieving the ideal 100% what we want to achieve. You know, for some people they're hard drugs, other people they're softer drugs that there can be destructive. You know, I'm a firm believer, philosophically anyway, that we're a product of our environment, and kind of almost like we're computers, and we have all these inputs, and our actions are outputs. And so often I see in commentary from people or stories about addiction, is almost viewed as a moral failing, as opposed to, well, this kind of many people, it's just their product of the environment. So, and that's kind of what these squids, I mean, they're invasive species, they're everywhere. And so it's kind of like once you get addicted to it, and it's a really, really easy way to avoid the hard questions, the difficulties that you're experiencing. You can just, you know, put a tentacle up your nose in the story. Ultimately that keeps everybody from achieving what they want, but it's really easy to do. And so there is a codependency on that level. And you know, for me, it's just I wanted to explore I guess addiction and despair, but really, you know, there's a hopeful ending to this short story. And I just really want to touch on, I mean, through, you know, all the failings that we all have, that through resilience, that's how you achieve, you know, hope. And so the, you know, the main character finds that to a certain extent in the story.
And I want to get back to our illustrators for a moment. The story is remarkably visual. The you know, the tentacles up the nose, all of it. A wonderful scenario and setting as well. And I wonder for our illustrators, let's start with Steve on this one. When you're reading a story that you're going to be illustrating, how do you go about choosing which scene is going to work as a visual depiction? Or if it is going to be a scene versus some sort of amalgamation of ideas, where do you begin, and how does this process work for you as artists?
Well, usually I read the story a couple of times, and more often than not, there's always some sort of hook within there that I can grab onto. There's some sort of visual component that I think that would be good. And then from that, you sort of spread out and do like 4 or 5 or 6 like different little sketches and see what's going to work. I mean, on this story, it was a little more complicated in this story because basically it's colonists around this planet, but the planet is very basically Earth-like. So there wasn't a lot of things for me to grab onto, and it's been populated with Earth animals. So it's like there wasn't like aliens and things for me to grab onto. And the story itself is very sort of science driven. So it was kind of a difficult concept to get my head around. But there was always this visual moment in the story for me, is, you know, there's a sunset is a large component of this story. So I always felt like as soon as I started drawing it, I thought, well, that's got to be the central element of it. I did like 4 or 5 other ideas, but basically the one that I always kept circling back to is like, you know, it's in the title, like 5 days till sunset. And so I'm like, that's got to be the hero essentially of the story. But then to do it and not give anything away about what the actual story is about is always the task that's set to you. I mean, you want something that's going to like draw people in. They're going to want to read the story because of seeing this illustration. And so, you know, if you can grab onto that and then without giving away the ending, which is frequently difficult because that's when a lot happens, right? It builds to this climax and then like, oh, I'll do the climax, but then you're giving away the whole story. So for me, I wanted to just grab that moment within the story where they're all like, it's kind of a moment of acceptance and could be despair, could be optimism, but I wanted to like try and bring that to the story without giving anything too much away about it. So, you know, it's a task. There's no lie about it, but you know, the best illustrations usually do that for you. You're like, oh, you're intrigued enough to want to proceed with it. So you're complementing the story in a way.
That sounds very tricky. How do you go about this process, Jennifer?
Well, besides like snatching an idea, you know, like what he was saying, I run like all of these different parts and elements of the story in my head in a way that's visual and trying to see, you know, like what could this look like? What could this look like? And you actually like usually start by drawing lots of little thumbnails and drawing like out each part and what each part could look like. And you can do, you know, different variations of each one and then picking a few. And we would actually did this a part of the process where we would submit some of those images, the ones that we refined a little bit more and that we picked, and then we get feedback. And then depending on, you know, what the judges liked, then we would work on that particular idea more. So I think in my case, it's more of a matter of having all of these different ideas and being able to visualize multiple different things so that you can then rein it in and pick what is going to be the best image that is going to look great, as well as it's going to give you a good idea of what the story is going to be about, without giving the whole thing away, you know, like Steve was saying.
One more for Jody here. Throughout everything you've learned through your long and illustrious career, I wonder if there is one piece of advice that you would give to someone considering entering the contest, or maybe entering for the first time, or not for the first time.
Do it. Please send the story in. One of the stories that I tell my students is of my own failure to follow up on an opportunity. When I was 19, I sent a story to Analog, and Stan Schmidt, wonderful man, sent me a letter back, a personalized letter, and I had no understanding that a personalized letter was a big deal. I didn't know about the hierarchy of rejection letters, but he said, I like your style. I've seen the plot before, but I really like the way that you write. Please send me something else. And I never did. So I was getting encouragement. I chickened out. I beg young writers and young artists to send something to the contest. Because once you've done it one time, you can do it again. And keep doing it, because the only way that you don't get to enter anymore, actually, there are two. You can either become a winner or you become a professional that is who is getting paid professional rates, and you're no longer eligible for the contest. And both of those are good outcomes. So it costs you nothing except the time to send in the story. You can enter once a quarter. We are now reading for well, I'm finishing up with the third quarter. We're moving on to the fourth. Send me stories. I want to read them, because this is a very encouraging, a very helpful contest for young writers. You do get feedback. You do get ranked. You get feedback of a sort, and you have people that you can talk to and correspond with in the forum. You get to know each other. You get to meet at conventions and talk about your successes, your failures, what you think works, what didn't, until the day that comes when you get a phone call from Jody Labaki. So really, there's no downside to it. Please try. Don't follow my example. I put myself back 9 years by doing that.
Sage advice. And here's one last question, and this one's for everybody. We'll start with John Eric on this one. What's coming up next for you, and what are you currently working on in your writing career?
Yeah, sure. So, well, I'm currently novelizing Squiddy, and so I'm, I don't know, ankle waist deep. I'm in it on the first draft. So having fun with it, the challenge, and just I'm just kind of finding out how the squids came. So that's been a whole lot of fun. I recently had a story published in the Colored Lynn Speculative Fiction magazine. So check that out. I'm going to be at Dragon Con. So if you're going to be there, say hi. I'll say hi back. Check out my website at jschleicher.com. And then I also have a blog on there where I blog about different things that delight me. So I'd appreciate you, checking out my digital real estate, so to speak. But yeah, so just novelizing Squiddy right now. It's kind of what I'm working on.
And how about you, Steve? What are you working on right now?
Well, I've been kind of busy since I got back, surprisingly. I've done a couple of book covers, a couple of short story covers. Currently, I'm working on a graphic novel for a company that's going to be coming out next year. So it's a lot of work. I'm doing the prequel to that, basically. It's going to be a short promotional piece, so it's going to be like 13 pages or so. So I'm working on that. That's the main thing I've got right now. I've got a couple of other things going on. I was going to go to Dragon Con, but unfortunately that's not going to work out this year, but I'll try again next year. I'll turn up at another one at some point. Just setting up my own business. I've been getting a bunch of freelance working, but like I said, the biggest focus right now is this graphic novel, because it's like a huge project. It's going to be 3 books apparently. So I'm on book 1 of a lot of work, I guess. So, but I can't complain about that. That's what I went in for. It's great. But yeah, look at my website, stevebentleyartwork.net. I do a little bit of a blog on there occasionally. Sometimes it's worth reading, I guess. And I keep updates on that when I'm putting up new work. So
wonderful. That sounds exciting. And how about you, Jennifer? What are you working on? What's up next for you?
Well, normally I'm super, super busy with work, but I did get started on a piece at the Milwaukee Illustration Intensive event that Steve had mentioned. And I haven't worked on it again since, but I am planning on it and finishing it, and I'm actually going to be doing it for my work. It's going to be the cover for their manual for their biggest D&D game ever, like world record breaking.
That sounds super cool. And Jody, aside from reading a lot of entries for the contest, what are you working on these days?
Well, in October, I have an alternate history book coming out in Eric Flint's 1632 universe. It's called 1635, The Weaver's Code, and I'm very proud to have completed this. Eric and I started it, but of course, you probably know we've lost him. I'm working on the next in the Myth Adventures series, started by Robert Asprin, continued by the 2 of us and me since he passed away. I seem to lose a lot of collaborators, but I promise you I had nothing to do with it. But I have a lot of other projects going as well as the contest, so I keep busy.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, congratulations to all the winners here. John Eric Schleicher for your winning story, Jennifer Mellen and Stephen Bentley for your winning illustrations. Wonderful stuff. Thank you to coordinating judge Jody, Lynn, Nye. It's always a joy to see people's dreams coming true. keep at it. I know you're going to have wonderful careers. I also want to make a brief announcement that up on August 20th, we'll be hosting Flash Science Fiction Night, which we do every year for 6 months out of the year. I put a little link into the chat to that. And for this event, we have Brent A. Harris, Pedro Iniguez, and Writers of the Future winner from, I believe, Volume 37, F.J. Bergman. So more wonderful stuff coming up. Thank you to everybody in the audience. Thank you to the winners and to Jody here. Always nice to see you, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
having us.